Everyone has a story, and today we have already heard several amazing stories. I'm excited to have a chance to share with you my story, our founder's story, the story of the people who believed in us, and even the story of those who didn't. This is the story of Challenge Detroit, but really, this is the story of Detroit. My story starts in a rural community about an hour outside of the city where I grew up. On my family's horse farm, I mucked stalls, I baled hay, I rode the wooded and winding trails of my community. But despite those rural roots, I craved knowing more about our community's urban center, about Detroit. My parents gave me a unique experience in the city, not of the typical visits to the Fox Theater or to Tigers games, but really an immersion in the built environment. So it was no surprise that at a young age, I decided I wanted to be an architect. What was a surprise, to me at least, was that much of my time as a young architect would be spent fingertips at keyboard behind a desk. I wanted to experience the built environment, not just draw it. So I changed directions ever so slightly and wound up with a degree in construction management from Michigan State. During school, I interned in Chicago building the next great skyscraper in the Loop. I studied in Italy to understand a deeper history of our community and built environment. And I had a chance to work on a loft development in downtown Detroit. Those experiences all piqued my curiosity even further. I remember very vividly looking out the window of that loft development onto Detroit's main street, Woodward Avenue. It was a gloomy Detroit summer day, as I'm sure all of us have seen too many of in Michigan, and I squinted my eyes just a little bit. Through my squinting eyes, I couldn't see the neighboring boarded up buildings, but rather I saw the opportunity and the possibilities. I knew then that I wanted to be part of the transformation of more than just a building, but really of a community and a city. So I decided to return to school for a master's degree in urban planning to understand not just buildings, but community development. While seeking my master's degree, I joined a construction firm in the greater Detroit area, founded by Doyle Mosier, a lifelong entrepreneur. Doyle and I quickly hit it off. His daughter, who was about my age, was planning a move to Washington, D.C., like so many of my friends that were traveling across the United States to great cities. We shared sob stories about the younger generation leaving Detroit and leaving Michigan for better jobs and a better lifestyle. And naive as I was, I shared my view of the city from that loft window in Detroit, where I saw something more. And it turns out that Doyle saw it too. Our passions, while different, focused on the same outcome: to create an environment attractive to the next generation of leaders, of thinkers, and of doers, and to attract and retain that talent in Detroit. Not everyone saw eye to eye with us. The more traditional routes tend to be more accepted, and our idea would be far from traditional. Doyle's chapter in this story is waking up one morning with a vision of what would eventually become Challenge Detroit. A vision of bringing top talent together from our own backyard and from across the country to live in the city, to work across the region, and to, most importantly, make an impact. We have the opportunity to take an idea and make it reality, despite what the naysayers, and there were plenty of them, thinking and some even telling us that our idea was pie in the sky. I remember talking to my master's professor while at the University of Michigan and proposing that I work on Challenge Detroit for my thesis project. He used those exact words, and they stung, but they only made me work harder because the idea was a little bit pie in the sky, but Doyle and I were dedicated to making it happen. So in 2007, we set out with our idea. We started by launching an organization called the Collaborative Group that brings together 75 influencers from the greater Detroit area. These individuals represent diverse backgrounds, all with a passion to do something positive for their hometown, for Detroit. From doctors and lawyers to educators and artists, the individuals behind the Collaborative Group rallied around the idea of Challenge Detroit and helped make it a reality. But as we all know, reality is rarely that easy and never that quick. 2007 came and went, and so did several more years. During those years, Detroit and our country went through a tumultuous time especially for those of us with jobs in the built environment. Doyle's construction firm suffered, and our little side project of Challenge Detroit became our only hope. As job cuts and pay cuts took place at the firm, I asked my family to hang on with me. And in the spring of 2010, my husband and I packed our bags, sold our home, just about everything in it, and moved into the room above my parents' garage. I promised my husband and my loving and welcoming parents, who I am forever grateful to, that it would only be 6 months. Yeah, right? It was not 6 months. Soon enough, it became 2 years. And in the fall of 2011, Doyle and I sat in a conference room at his office. The collaborative group and the idea of Challenge Detroit had given us and those 75 influencers something to believe in. And despite the mountains of objections and perhaps the worst job market in Detroit since the Depression, the influencers of the collaborative group believed that this had the potential to be a game-changing idea. Doyle and I were dedicated to getting the buy-in from these individuals who, to support our crazy idea, put their own reputations on the line. And we did all of this with no guarantee that Challenge Detroit would ever even make it off the ground, much less deliver on a high level. But working with that amazing group of individuals, despite the hard times in our economy, we somehow rallied 30 companies to provide jobs to a program that didn't even exist yet. Perhaps it gave those companies, like us, something to believe in. But the jobs wouldn't be enough. We needed funding, we needed housing, and we needed an experience to make Challenge Detroit a reality. In that conference room, we decided it didn't matter if we only raised $5. We had worked too hard for too long. Challenge Detroit had to happen. So on good faith, a little, maybe a lot, of wishful thinking, and the support of the community, we launched Challenge Detroit in January of 2012. And we had no idea what to expect. Would a program aimed at attracting and retaining the next generation of leaders actually attract and retain them? By the close of the application in March, our question would be answered. Nearly 900 people from Detroit and from across the country, and really from across the world, had applied. And in the meantime, a small entrepreneur turned big businessman from Detroit decided that he believed in us too, and made a personal contribution to fund a major portion of Challenge Detroit for 2 years. His support helped garner additional support from major community investors like the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. Challenge Detroit was literally made possible by hundreds of people. It wasn't just me. It wasn't just Doyle. It was the influencers at the collaborative group, the leadership at the companies, the investors who took a major risk on a crazy idea, the applicants who believed in us, the volunteers turned leadership staff, and so many others. But this isn't just the Challenge Detroit story. This is the Detroit story. Believe it, work for it, do it. And in August of 2012, we did it. We brought together our inaugural class of 30 fellows who would spend 1 year with us, living, working, playing, giving, and leading in Detroit. Each of our fellows lives in the city of Detroit to infuse their story. They work in innovative roles at a variety of companies across our region. This brings together our region and those companies that are very fractured around a common cause. They play in the community through monthly social and cultural activities, and they give through social impact challenge projects that combine their unique intellect and provide connectivity to diverse nonprofits, helping those organizations solve problems, expand ideas, and broaden awareness on topics such as food accessibility, social entrepreneurship, neighborhood storefront activation and education, and more. And our fellows grow as leaders through education, mentorship, and a new awareness of the top issues that they can make into opportunities in Detroit. Their story is more than living, working, playing, giving, and leading. Their part of the story is about changing perceptions, and it started when they applied. Those 900 applications proved to us that not only do these individuals have an interest in Challenge Detroit, but in Detroit. We narrowed down the 900 applicants to just over 100 individuals for our inaugural year and shared 1-minute videos that they created for their application on our Facebook page. Through their videos, a new story was uncovered about Detroit. A story of Detroit's past, present, and future. A collage of perspectives and insights respecting Detroit history, acknowledging Detroit today, and most importantly, driving the vision for Detroit tomorrow. In a week-long community vote on those videos on our Facebook page, we grew from 750 likes, which we thought was really impressive at the time, to nearly 20,000 in just 1 week. People want to hear this story, and people care about Detroit. We can share a balanced story every day with them through persistent, positive, and widespread messaging. This story is the beginning of a small social movement. And telling our story is key, but showing it is even better. So let's take a look at one of the ways that we tell our story through video.
Detroit continues to lose the most talented and promising leaders of tomorrow. Challenge Detroit seeks to change that with an innovative approach to develop a scalable revitalization program that's unique because it's specifically designed to attract creative, talented problem solvers to live, work, play, and give in Detroit.
Challenge Detroit originated in 2007. It was actually a dream. It was early in the morning, that time when you're kind of waking up, and it kind of came to me. The name Challenge Detroit came to me, and the idea of retaining and attracting top talent to the region.
Challenge Detroit began this movement through a competition. We received more than 900 applications for the competition from talented individuals and narrowed it down to just over 100 semifinalists. Over 17,000 individuals voted for their favorite semifinalists on our Facebook page. Based on the community vote, a review from our judges, and the results from a 2-day interview trip, we attracted a competitive class of 30 individuals from across the country.
Challenge Detroit is attracting a diversity of thinkers and doers. They are engineers, attorneys, entrepreneurs, artists, educators, doctors, lawyers, and really people who want to make an impact on the community. They're from our own backyard here in Detroit, our region, and from across the country. One of my favorite parts of Challenge Detroit are the team challenges. This is really what differentiates us and makes us stand apart. Our team challenges take place every Friday, and all of our fellows come together. This is an opportunity for us to build community internally, but also to support the community outside of our program as well. We're partnering with nonprofit organizations. We're working together with experts in different industries, experts in different fields, to make an impact on what's happening in Detroit now and plans for the future. Our fellows are ambassadors for our community and for our program. And these are individuals that are going to set the tone for what happens in the future in our community. Again, they're partnering with individuals that are so important and that are already making a stake in Detroit, and continuing to build these relationships is going to be what really sets our program apart.
I'm looking forward to working with Detroit nonprofits to figuring out what our next challenge is.
Cultural events.
To changing people's perspective on Detroit.
I'm really excited about this year of getting to work with all of our different nonprofit partners.
My hope for the outcome after the inaugural year of this program is that we've made a dent in what's happening in Detroit, that we've started something really exciting, and that we've gotten other people excited about what's happening here. This year's fellows took a huge leap of faith on us. They didn't know what they were in for when they applied, and in all honesty, neither did we. And in just a few months, we near the closing of this inaugural year and the start of our second. It's hard for me to understand sometimes, but the inaugural class doesn't always see their impact, but I do. I see it. Just by applying, they showed that there is a real interest in what's happening in Detroit. And by sticking with the ups and downs of our startup environment and of our community, They have become the next generation of change makers. They're impacting their companies, which range from nonprofits like Focus Hope to startups like Hired My Way to major corporations like Chrysler. They're impacting the organizations that we serve on our team challenges, like the grassroots effort of the Detroiters working for environmental justice, to the major nonprofit partners like the United Way. They're impacting their friends, their families, those who care about Detroit, and those who believed that our city didn't have a chance. Until now, because they see it too. Just over a week ago, I met the 75 finalists for our Year 2 program, and am once again blown away by the caliber of talent that has an interest in Challenge Detroit, but also in Detroit. Our companies, our partners, our funders, our current class of fellows, and next year's class of fellows all have something in common. An entrepreneurial spirit, a passion for Detroit, and a drive to make a change. And we're making that change together by sharing our stories through social media, through videos like the one you just saw, through blogs, through face-to-face interactions, and through opportunities like this. I couldn't do this in any other city, and I wouldn't want to. Only in Detroit does a longtime entrepreneur give a 23-year-old woman a chance to run an organization. And only in Detroit does a community support that young woman and that organization and believe that they have a chance at success. In cities like New York or LA, I would be 1 in a million. In Detroit, I have a stake in the change. And in Detroit, I am not the only person who packed her bags to move home with her parents because she believed in something. Doyle is not the only entrepreneur who believed that life is more than building businesses, but that it's really about building community. Our fellows are not the only young people taking a chance and making a change in Detroit. Telling our story is telling Detroit's story. This story couldn't happen anywhere else, and it is far from over. We are just on to the next chapter. Thank you.